This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, we're going live in five, four, three, two.
Good morning, friends, and you are our friends. Welcome to another episode of Green for Life here on YouTube. As always, I'm the Kotzebue City Councilman Joshua Hadley, Treasurer of the Green Party of Alaska and President of the Kotzebue Chess Club. And as always, I'm joined by my main event man, John Olson over in Maine. Morning, John.
Hi, hi. Had some snow last night. Not as much as you guys get, but a few inches. And my brother's out plowing, so it's that time of year. And the lake finally froze over in mid-January. Took a long time.
Uh, you know, um, Yeah, we got some snow here, but when it's this cold right now, it's negative 40 degrees. Like, oh, Alapa. Yeah, it's cold. Like the last couple of days, my dad has a rental, and no one's renting it right now, so no one's running water or whatever, and I had to go over there with a heat gun and point it over at the wall and pipes inside the wall because I can't go directly on his water pipes. And that took me like an hour and a half
I
each
could do
time.
without all that. I'd be happy that I don't have to deal with that.
Yeah.
Yikes.
So I'm not getting too much snow because it's so cold. But yeah, I'll see that in a few like next month or maybe definitely in March. I sort of enjoy it when the roads are look like the Death Star at the end of Star Wars. Like you're driving through that. It's kind of fun. So we're gonna be joined by Solar Tony here in a couple of minutes. We like start. Here on Green for Life, we don't break the news, we fix it. So the first news story I have for everyone is did you hear about this, John? There was a over on New Year's Day, New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, there was a pastor in Ohio that had he had some people. It was negative 20 degrees out where he was at, and he had some homeless people stay over at his church overnight. The homeless shelters were filled up, overfilled, and he decided to did the Christian thing and lend a helping hand. And the police decided to charge him with zoning violations because business district. So you can't have people be sleeping over. I mean, isn't that just we got some of the most American headlines you can, like pastor charged for sheltering homeless people. Isn't like
Yeah,
I
that's
swear.
absolute insanity. I mean, this is literally doing what Jesus would have done. I mean, the being a welcoming of the people, taking care of the poor. I mean, they should arrest the whoever gave that order ought to be arrested for criminal negligence at least.
Yeah, why can't they just say we're gonna have the church open for 24 hours? Like, aren't they like we have Walmart's open for 24 hours and people be roaming in there? Like, this is one of the things we're looking at zoning here in Kotzebue. This is one of the things I'm sort of afraid about is like if we say this is what this is gonna be for, is that always what it's gonna be? I mean, we're out. I don't think we're gonna have this problem because I mean, we got so many churches in this small town, and um, but yeah, it's absolutely disturbing to me, and I think it really goes against the whole idea of separating church and state. I mean, we do allow wild things like these Native American groups doing drugs and however you feel about that, but we let them, sort of like that they do illegal would normally be illegal things, but they say, well, this is a religious ritual or it's part of that, and they're allowed to do that. Why can't we just say the same for this? I really don't know who it's hurting.
Yeah, elementary humanitarian value. I mean, duh. It's, I mean, where's their head coming from? It's just total bureaucracy. It's just the kind of thing we need to flush down the toilet.
I agree. There's some need for bureaucracy, but yeah, they take it too far. Did you have a news item for us this week, John?
Uh, well, just the usual, what's happening in Palestine, Israel. All of what occurred to me is right now we have Palestine Holocaust deniers, and they're called Zionists.
Yeah.
I mean,
Uh,
there's the original Holocaust, of course, that we all know about, and it was horrible. And now the same kind of thing is happening, and they say, "Oh no, no, this isn't the same thing at all." I mean, it's just the same stupidity we just heard about the pastor trying to be helpful to people.
Yeah, absolutely. I was listening. I don't think it was NPR, but someone did a story in one of the people when the Zionists took a bulldozer to their homes, and one of the people whose homes were destroyed, he came out and one of these Palestinians, and he said, you know, I don't blame Jewish people because these people aren't really Jewish. They're secular. They don't really follow religion. They're just using it as a mask to you know um justify their actions. um it's too bad that a lot of people associate all Jews with the Zionists. It's sort of like
Exactly.
yeah
Of course. Yeah,
it's too bad.
we need to separate Zionism as an ideology from Jewish people. I always talk about Jewish people. I don't say the Jews, as being responsible. It's the Israeli government principally, and it's the ideology behind it, this Zionism. Maybe we need to move on. We could talk about that the whole program, but that's, I think, not what we need to be doing here.
And I had one more news story before we get to Tony, our guest for this week. And I try our producer Robert Shields. He made a good point. We need a little bit more feel good stories. It is a morning show after all. So I saw that the White House is looking to give out pardons to people who've been jailed for using cannabis, and what a lot of what's been pushing that is the FDA finds that cannabis shouldn't be a Schedule 1 drug. It's more like Tylenol than
Yeah, you're
heroin,
right.
perhaps.
Sure, sure.
Yeah, and I mean, it's ridiculous that this started in the first place. Like it there's so many reasons, like yeah, like people high on marijuana shouldn't have been jailed. Like a lot of people on drugs, like I feel like just because they're getting drugged, like I don't feel like putting them in a jail cell is really helping them or helping society at all. I feel like, maybe we should spend money instead of like do things like send them to rehab or something, help them out.
Of course, elementary sanity. But of course, we don't have a sane government, do we?
But at least now we're going in the right direction. There's been people like Eric Friend who worked on Hemp for Victory. They worked the Greens in Alaska worked on legalizing marijuana in the state. Think in more states are now legalizing it. We're going in the right direction at least. And that's because people have fought for this and worked hard. And and at least now some people are getting pardons. It's not everyone, it's users. I sort of understand that maybe some of the sellers aren't, they probably are criminal, but I don't really know. And everyone has to apply for this pardon. So I think that's the news for this week, and I'd like to introduce our guest. So we're let's see. So we're asking the question, what's the state of green globally in 2024. Our guest today is Solar Tony from California. He's an advocate. He does research on passive building design. Yeah, well, welcome, Tony. How's it going today?
Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, everybody. Yeah, it's going good. If I could show a slide that to illustrate what we're trying to achieve and why, and also then later on speak a little bit about the um, groups that we have, the groups that we have online, grassroots, all of them. One of them is on eco-sustainability, a term that I coined early on, and then how to go about those. What is the reasoning? What is the behind the actions that we need to implement globally, not just in one country or another, because of air, water, soil, food, plants, animals, rivers, mountains, oceans, sunshine. We live on those things. It's very important to understand that. It's critical. It's more than important. It's critical that we understand that we live on the planet. The planet does not live on us. The planet does not need us. We need the planet. So if we are serious about watching a few more sunsets in the near future, in the longer term, we really radically need to change our view, Western, Occidental, Judeo-Christian view of the world. And I heard earlier about genocide. This empire of delusion has been founded on genocide, land invasion, slavery, ecocide, for the last 500 years at least, and it can't continue. Can't continue that way. We're destroying the place that gives us life, and that's the only one we have within 4 or 5 light years, if that close. That's and we know how to make those changes. If I could put a few slides on the screen that should illustrate better, I'll go into that.
I think we're
Tony,
all,
really, well, I'm just gonna ask since some people listen to this in podcast form, if you could just take a second to explain the image of the slide to the listeners who don't get the video.
That's the action that we all need to seriously consider are based on the necessities that we have as human beings, as human animals. That include, first one is shelter. The second is water, then food, and then the fourth one is education. We are animals that need to be educated. We are beings that need to be educated. We do not, none of us come to this world with a manual written in, with a program written in our memories, in our behavior. That needs to be educated, and education goes in all kinds of directions and all kinds of fantasies and all kinds of aberrations, and history proves that abundantly. That so we need to make an effort to give education that puts us in context with the planet that we live in, and we put in front of everything, we put in front of humans before humanity, we put air, water, food, soil, plants, animals, rivers, and oceans ahead of humanity, because they make us. Air, water, food, sunshine, they make us. We do not make them. Plants and animals, they make us. So we are dependent on those things, and therefore they deserve a great deal of respect, which this so-called civilization ain't doing, or any other civilization on the planet other, for very minimal impacts, which in the last 500 years they were genocided. And that was the First Nations here on the entire continent, from the Inuit to the Mapuche in the Tierra del Fuego, in the tip of Argentina, the Magellan Strait, and further into the 5 continents. Everything that was pointing into the right direction, that we need to pay a lot of respect to a lot of attention to what makes us, disappeared almost entirely, and what came in return for that, in place of that, were ego, self-importance, and man is above everything else, and it's the basis of this so-called civilization and that we have today. So it's which is a radical view. It's an extremist, a totally extremist view. It's just pathetic. It's absurd. It's aberrant. It's an abomination. So water makes us. We don't make water. The soil makes us. We don't make soil. Okay. And we don't make that in science, in scientific terms, that would violate the laws that we understand now as the laws which are not our laws, are the laws of the universe. It would violate the principles. We don't have a better term than principles or laws, first principles of nature and creation, which are we can't create stuff, and we cannot destroy stuff, and that's what we call today the laws of conservation of mass and energy in thermodynamics. And entropy. So we put, in order to achieve those goals, we put 8 things forward: how to build passive solar homes. That means homes that cool and maintain themselves in a cool temperature, in a low temperature when it is hot outside, and they maintain also themselves hot inside and warm inside, comfortable inside when it is too hot outside. So we call that thermal stability. The second one is puts solar photovoltaics on the roof instead of putting it on the corporation. So put it on top of the roof, not on grids and things of that nature, that you have to import electricity from thousands of miles away over an enormous infrastructure. Number 3 is rainwater catchment. Catch all the rain that comes on the roof, put it on a cistern. 50% of the Australians do it. They look at us like if we are imbeciles because we don't do that, and we probably are. And solar cooking is a way to cook the food directly from the thermal energy of the sun, and that can be done. There's entire populations, entire villages doing that. Number 5 is
Wait, after you're done listing, can you tell me an example of some of these homes, these as you call them, passive solar designed homes after you're done listing them? I heard you say give some examples of people in Australia having these type of buildings.
right, right. And that's so I'll finish the 2 more items to go. I'll finish the list. So domestic solar hot for the house, for the shower, for the kitchen, for the washing, whatever needs to be done, coming directly from the thermal energy from the sun, not the photo. Okay, it can come also from the photovoltaic energy from the sun, but it is a lot easier and a lot cheaper to do just a solar hot water from the thermal energy from the sun. And that comes at a very low cost, very low price. Lots of countries are also doing that. Then the gray water that comes from the house, from washing and bathing and whatnot, needs a detoxification program, ban all of the industrial soaps and detergents and cleaners and industrial commercial cleaners. All of that crap needs to go, because then the water goes directly into a gray water system that builds biomass and purifies the water and can be used in an organic garden. Then number 7 is a compost toilet that again, with the human waste, we're still humans. We are a fermentation vat inside of us. And when the wastes come out, a walking fermented from the walking fermentation vat, it goes into a compost toilet that turns that into humus. And then number 8, the 8 initial things, is an organic garden with no GMOs, with no transgenics, with no genetically engineered nothing, with no synthetic fertilizers and pesticides and fungicides, very, very long things, steroids, antibiotics that are basically produced from oil. So those are the 8 things. That's it. We don't need to do anything more. We don't need to do anything less. It's just not one thing. We do not promote one thing. We promote a group of things, these 8 things that put together, work in unison, work in a group, work in a conjoint to give everyone on the planet a nice, comfortable life that eliminates the enormous, horrendous infrastructures that we are using at the moment that we built for water, for food, for energy, for transportation, for materials, for toxic materials. Eliminates those. Gone. So that's all we have
So
to do. This is grassroots. Anybody can do it. We
so
don't need political parties.
So, and this is something this podcast actually shoots, is not everything green is exactly political. There's things outside like politics and going to the voting booth that you can do that are green. So you told me you mentioned there's homes in Australia that follow this system, and as you're saying, like all 8 of
Yes,
these
yes,
things are needed for this.
yes,
Like, so you've seen these buildings. How do
yes.
they look? And they function well?
Yes, they collect the water. Australia, for the most part, gets a few inches of rain a year in the outback, what they call we call here the boonies, the sticks, the woods. They get very little rain, from anything from 2, 4, 6, 8 inches a year. Very arid. It's not a desert. Don't make that mistake, because even in the most arid of deserts, the most dry of deserts in the Sahara, with a fraction of an inch a year, there are at least 100 species living on the sand, living what we call the sand in the desert. So with that very little rain, they collect. When it rains, they're ready from the tin roof, galvanized roof, whatever they use. They collect every single drop and they put it outside in round reservoirs that in many cases are just cut culverts from the freeway bypasses. Freeways, when the freeway goes over, the road goes over a stream or a creek that forms with the flash floods. We do those in here. So cut one of those, 5 meters in diameter, less than that. It's the ones I saw in Australia. I crossed Australia in one time, all the way from Darwin to Adelaide in the South, Melbourne,
Oh
Sydney.
wow.
It's about 3,000 kilometers, 2,000 miles as the crow flies.
Wow.
And
Tony,
and
you seem to do
I
like
saw them everywhere. I saw them
Yeah,
everywhere.
you seem to do a lot of travel, or I don't know if you do a lot of traveling. You at least been to Australia. That's a lot more than me. So I'm imagine the listeners are interested. What's your background? Like, how did you get into all of this exactly?
Well, I grew up organic, and that I had the good fortune of my dad. When I was 4 or 5 years old, put a peach tree in front of me, a shovel, and he recited a poem from Confucius. A man should write a book, uh, have a son, and plant a tree. Here's your tree, here's your shovel, start digging. So I dug the tree and I planted my first tree, and I went from there, growing with trees and compost piles and lettuce and peaches and climbing orange trees and watching the blackbirds build nests. So that made sense to me, and that connection with the earth, with the worms, with the planet, with life, with food, and the planet that sustained us. So it was very easy to extend that a little bit more. This is not a big leap. Lots of the traditional civilizations and cultures adopted many of these principles. We refine them. It's just that this the way in permaculture. Mollison, on the introduction of his book, he says, we don't do anything special, more or less quoting him. All of these things that we do are, we call permaculture now. They have been done, so culture civilizations in Thailand, in Vietnam, in the Inca, the Aztec, the Chinampas in Mexico. You can go still see a fraction of what they used to be right there in the middle of Mexico City. The Native Americans with the Three Sisters corn, squash, and beans, the paddy beans, very suited for New Mexico for very low rainfalls. That we disregarding those things. There is only one president, to my knowledge, that had some understanding, was educated. That was FDR in the 30s. This was in the 30s, before permaculture and all these regenerative things, words, fancy words. He said, a nation that kills its soil, destroys itself. That was FDR in the 1930s. So the knowledge is out there. We refined it a little bit with the passive solar design already existed with the Greeks and the Moroccans and the Tunisians and the Egyptians 4,000 years ago. In Somalia, there are still buildings made of adobe and natural materials. I can go inside of a home and point to you 1,000 different synthetic chemicals made from oil that are toxic, carcinogen, and we're living with that crap.
I
So
think we're in
Yeah.
agreement with you,
good,
Tony. I think
good, good.
we agree that
Take it to
there's a
heart.
lot of toxicity, but we'd like to know how this can relate us to your experience with the Green Party in California, because we're on the same page here. You know, we
Good, good,
because
good.
we're coming out of the green tradition. You know, we're very much aware of the toxicity that has been perpetrated by the corporate culture. So,
So I
what's your experience with
presented,
the Green Party?
yeah, sure. I presented this to the Green Party in California and many other states from the 50 states. I was a delegate from Los Angeles to the first forming convention in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So if that is, and there are anyone in the audience, they probably know me. Made presentations in there, called the attention to them that these things would need to be implemented and in a hurry. We already had the science of climate change and global warming, that we have really a sword of Damocles on top of our heads, and everything else that we need to move and move with urgency. So then, before that, I was a delegate to the first, second, third, fourth, and fifth conventions, including the first in Sacramento, also a delegate. And to all of these, I went on my own dime, on my own money. I never asked for a penny from anybody, and called for this urgency. On the first convention in Sacramento, I asked the plenary all the delegates from the state that were in there, from all the cities of the state. Why are we doing this in a rental place that does not have compost toilets, does not have a gray water system, does not have solar PV in the roof, does not serve organic food? And we are doing this in decency. So we support these principles, but we are not doing them. What is this? What kind of nonsense is that? And in the other conventions, the same thing. And nobody moved a finger to actually find a facility that, and they exist. Could go to a farm and rent a farm, talk to the farmer, do this in there, at least get organic food, and then the waste produced could be used in the field to produce to transform that, convert that in humans. So the background goes far deep and extensive into all of those areas. What we need is action. It's not words. We need action. So anybody can turn this, all of this, into an initiative. I have one for the state of California. You are welcome to share it and sign it. Some of you already did. Appreciate that. There is 1,000 signatures in there already. Actually, from not just from the state. This is global. We need to implement these things globally if we are serious about maintaining our status as living human beings on the planet. They've been calling that attention for a long time, not just exclusively to the Green Party, but to any other party and
Well, I'll
any
mention
other
that I had
organization.
some, Tony, I mentioned that I had some experience in Hawaii. I marketed
Good.
solar energy for basically 20 years. It was kind of the closest thing to a career. This was the solar water heating, though, there, just with the flat plate panels, and sometimes using the PV panel for driving the water with a DC pump, direct current.
Good, good.
So it worked well when the sun was shining great. The pump ran fast, and when it was low in the sky or cloudy, it would run slow, and at night it shuts off. So it was a very good integral system that we used, and I sold
Good.
over $1 million worth of solar while I was there during that time. So that's my contribution to
Good,
to
good.
actually
Good
doing
for you.
something.
Good for you.
Well, I wanted to ask,
That's what it
hey,
needs to be done. But it's just
Tony,
making a
I
point,
wanted to ask, yeah,
making a point in there with John. John, we do not do just one thing. We keep in mind the integral design that put those things together, and the magic happens. You have food, you have shelter, you have energy, you have education, you have respect for the earth, and we have a system that works by itself.
So, Tony, is this something, I was curious, John talked about his career in solar. Is a passive solar design, is the passive solar design process something someone could enter and make a career out of, or right now is this mainly for hobbyists?
Absolutely, absolutely a career if that's what you want to take it, and that make it that way. Yes, there are good authors that you can consult and start learning about that. Sim van der Rijn is one. He was former chair of the architecture department at UC Berkeley. You can study as much as you want, on passive solar design. You can get a PhD, a doctorate if you want to. I was on one for on looking for one at one time, searching for one. I went in a different direction, more comprehensive, more scientific. But if you want a doctorate in passive solar design or just a BS or a master's, you can go. I would recommend another teacher, my good friend Fed Stitt. He was teaching at UC Berkeley, also in architecture, tenured so that means a permanent position within the cadre, within the faculty. And one day he came to UC Berkeley and talked to his faculty peers and colleagues, and he said, "Guys, you're not teaching what we should be teaching in here. Hasta la vista." And he went on to found in San Francisco the San Francisco Institute of Architecture, which in my view still has, I don't agree with the program in some things in there, but it's too much into design. I'm not looking into design. Designers in here is simple, like the thing that I was going to show on the screen. I don't know when it comes the time, it's a good time to show it. To show something on the screen, the designs can be simple, can be, don't need to be complicated. Don't need to forget architecture. Architecture is for design. There's a good example here in LA with SciArc. They began talking about the environment and talking about designs for the environment. And then one guy from that was teaching, and it was started by people from Pomona. Then one of them said, "Well, there's no money in this. We need to make design. You know, like Frank, what's his name, that designed the
Frank
Walt
Lloyd
Disney
Wright.
thing." No, no,
Frank
no,
Lloyd
no,
Wright.
no, no. After that, Frank, the guy that designed the Disneyland, Frank Lloyd Wright, he started a little bit of that with the Teosine West in Arizona with the center that he created in there. But he came too late, too little, and not enough. But the SciArc tried to do some that, and then they nobody really took forward. So the San Francisco Institute of Architecture still has a good program. Otherwise, all of the other programs in traditional architectural schools from established institutions like San Luis Obispo, I think that's the biggest. But yes, the biggest in the country. Yes, you can study passive solar design as much or as little as you like. The other ones, the same thing. Solar photovoltaic, you can study as much as or as little. You can go all the way to find out what makes the solar cell ticks and what are substrates, what are some gallium arsenide, and what is solid states, and junctions, and all of those intricate things. Or you can just learn how to install a solar panel. Rainwater catchment, the same thing, solar cooking. What we don't have, and I've been proposing to colleagues and peers for quite some time, and political parties and non-political parties, is that we need a faculty of eco-sustainability everywhere, because we have medicine, we have law, we have arts, we have music, we have engineering, we have medicine, we have psychology, we have parapsychology. Where are the studies that we know is passive solar ohms working, and why is what makes compost, what makes an organic garden more or organic farming more viable and more sustainable and less, enormously less dangerous than the farming, the synthetic chemical toxic poison farming that we have, that we call agriculture. What is, and demonstrate that scientifically, and what are gray water mini marshes.
I think you've got a good grasp on where the Green Party ought to be going. How do you think this is going these days with the Green Party? Are they
To grassroots. It needs to go, in my opinion, it needs to grassroots. You need to study the Rochdale co-ops in 1850 by in the town of Rochdale, and what was his name? Oliver, forgot, that led to, they are still there. They still have in the UK 40 billion a year in co-op owned cooperatives that they sell, like they look like supermarkets, but they sell to members like we have Costco in here, except they have a bit more of a local type of emphasis and outlook. Or the Mondragon that was started by Arismendi in after the bombing of Guernica, the famous painting of Picasso in 1936, where they tried the Junkers 88 to do what we are now doing in Palestine. The same technique, the same methods, and the Nazis did in World War II, and then we copied and got it to them in order to get rid of the Nazi horror and terror.
Yeah, I think we're all on the same page with that.
Good, good, good.
We're trying to get a little more focused on we're all
Co-ops.
Green Party members, and the question is, do you think that Green Party today has been gone off track, or do you think it's still grounded as it might have been more 20, 30 years ago? And if so, what do you have to say about the current status of the Green Party?
It's more, the page is good. I think the page and the font that you were referring to, that we are on the same page. The page is still good. It has been infiltrated right from the beginning, and I could tell you stories. Oh boy, could I tell you stories? and has been infiltrated and diverted, and the members that have that grounding were suckered, and
Yeah, I think you're
they got
right. I
into it.
agree with you. I
They
agree with you. I go
they got
back
into it.
Yeah, Tony, I go back 30 years with the Green Party, so I agree with you that with this infiltration and people that have fallen for it
Yeah, they fall
and
for it. They
kind of
fell
just
for it.
blindly
And they're not
going
unique.
along.
They're not unique. It's one of our human failures, I guess. What I see is a system of co-ops. The 8 principles that are proposed in this program, they eliminate by large, and I'm working on a book to explain that more in detail. Hope to get it published in a year or so. That the enormous amount cities, the infrastructure that exists today. We a recent paper on Nature, I believe it was on Nature, just in the last few months. We already surpassed with so-called man-made materials: concrete, steel, rebar, wood, plastics, cabinets, cars, SUVs, socks, anything, t-shirts, sneakers, anything you can, watches, computers. Already the weight of all of that crap already surpasses the weight of all living things on the planet. The 6 kingdoms: plants, animals, protea, archaea, fungi, bacteria, all of the 6 animal kingdoms. The crap that humans make. And it shows microplastics are already in the placenta of babies worldwide.
Tony,
Microplastics are
sorry, I thought
already
you
in
were.
the milk of mothers. I just paused in there so you give it a moment of reflection. So what we will have next, Homo plasticus, this is insanity what we're doing, and it's an incredible disconnect between what we are made of. We're made of water, people. We're made of air. We're made of soil. So we need to really understand that and live with that. Not just talk about it, but live with that.
So Tony, I wanted to ask, one day the building I'm in just has to go. I mean, it's not, very warm. It's negative 40 degrees out, and I feel like sooner than later, it's gotta go away and a new building's gotta put up. So if I want to put up I live in Kotzebue, Alaska. It's, I'm about 100 miles up into the Arctic Circle. So I'm curious, being on top of the world, if I wanted a building that follows the passive solar design, what do you recommend I do?
Those climates is tough. Those are tough climates. It's the Inuit knew how to do it, but it's now it's with oil and gas and the petrol based things. The only way that we know, the Inuit still maintain some of those traditions. Very few, as you know, most likely know, and probably are aware. We probably know some of those techniques that they use in there. But
Josh, you might mention your own circumstances there, your own ancestry.
Well, yeah, I'm a Inuit. I'm a
some
part of the
things
Inupiaq tribe.
some
Yeah.
things are viable. It's difficult. For instance, number 7, a compost toilet is difficult because you have to maintain temperature for the fermentation. The thermal bacteria, thermophilic bacteria that like heat, they live between under 20 and under 70 Fahrenheit. Under 80 is a little bit too much, under 60 and under 70 Fahrenheit. And it's difficult to maintain that temperature. A gray water system is also difficult to make because when the water gets outside, it freezes within a minute or two. So organic garden, it's a challenge to build say, anything like that. So that would need to solar cooking within maybe 3 or 4 months of the year would be possible to do that. Solar hot water, maybe also that. And the same with solar photovoltaics. A passive solar home with Adobe, that's possible because Adobe is pretty much available. Clayish earth and clayish ground and dirt, they are available pretty much anywhere on the planet. So straw bale would have to be imported hundreds of miles, if not thousands of miles from other locations. And again, it uses oil. So all of this need to be researched and studied in something that I've been asking for, which is a faculty or a college or a school or a university from of eco-sustainability, and not just at the highest level, like doctorates and whatnot, research, but from ground zero, from kindergarten all the way to preschool and all the way to K-12. We need to study and learn how to live on the planet, not to destroy it, to enhance it, not to destroy it. And the houses there in passive solar, they could be those principles still could be those applied at those high latitudes. If you are to latitude over 30 north latitude, that's very close to the pole, and it's very, very low temperatures. You tell me, like minus 60, 70,
Uh,
80. Very,
yeah, here it gets down to negative 50 Fahrenheit.
yeah, it's very difficult. And the homes that are built in there today is oil, 3 letters. That's it. It's
Yeah.
material, synthetic materials from oil, and all of that crap. When the lifetime of the house ends, where does it go? Into the soil, into the air? During the lifetime, those particles exuding, coming out, microparticles of less than 2.5 microns, they go into the air, lodge into the lungs, and stay there for the lifetime of the plant, and they go into the capillaries of plants. Plants are not much different than we are. They go into all of those, into all the life forms, from bacteria, from viruses, to plants and animals, and ourselves, and mother's milk and placenta of babies. Almost zero, nada, is been done to really take in consideration those things.
Tony, thanks for your time today. We got at the end of our shows, we do this thing called a call to action. And I just wanted to say to our audience, I mean, you got to listen to Tony, but he has some great slides that go along with his lectures. And I feel like when, the last time we spoke, that was very helpful. And you do, I don't know what to call them. You do maybe classes, or I don't know if that's the right word.
Yeah, yeah, there are classes on Saturdays. We've been doing before COVID, doing those in schools, universities, churches, anywhere. And after COVID, we started doing those online for the last 5 years now. And every Saturday, pretty much, we have had more than 200 speakers. I invite speakers from all over the world, all over the country. This should be global movement, call to action from all sides of the 4 corners of the planet. And we do it every Saturday. We've had many distinguished guests, including a good friend of mine, the discoverer of the Pacific plastic garbage patch here, which is already twice the size of Texas, and in the Pacific, and also a Nobel Prize winner, the person that formulated the cost of externalities, and those are the costs of smoking cars outside, putting the exhausts and the smokestacks and discharges on chemical plants, and the use of pesticides, and on and on. So from very simple to very complicated, and we continue every Saturday, 2 p.m. Pacific time online. I'll put it in the chat box in the few minutes that we still have.
Well, for the listeners, could you explain how they find how to find you? You know, exactly, and if they're interested in some of these that you do or these classes, and uh, if there's any website you want to promote, maybe do you do social media, the Facebook?
Yes, yes, appreciate the plug. That is I'll put a copy in the link right now. Eco-sustainable grassroots, because this is what we need to do, a system of co-ops that to start involving themselves. I invite you to read the Rochdale papers and also the Mondragon in the Basque land, corner of land between Spain and France in the Pyrenees, that went by themselves. They started a co-op that is not eco-sustainable. I'll point out that's what's missing. This is just the example, the organization, how those things were organized and what are the principles. And I gave several sessions on Saturdays to illustrate that. What is their management technique? What do they do? They have 100,000 employees, 50 billion per year, and their own university from A to Z with 40,000 students, their own banking system, their own health care, not part of the Spain thing, because the Spain would not grant them into their public health system, because you are owners. Co-ops, owner co-ops is different than other co-ops. Owner co-ops means that you, me, and everybody else has a share in the co-op itself. So we
Okay,
need to
Tony,
organize.
I think we need to wind it down for today. I want to add that a lot of these, I mean, we're fully on board with the ideas. It's a question of implementation. And for where I'm coming from, this gets back to the political question, because the political parties put up candidates that continue the corporate
Yes.
model over and over and over. And so this is why we have a Green Party. And if we could get somebody in office, particularly at the presidential level, who was at least conscious of all this ecological disaster, one thing that I would ask that president to do is to mobilize the Navy to collect every piece of sizable plastic that out of this big garbage patch in the Pacific that you just mentioned. And they could do some of the same on the big lakes.
Yeah,
But but
we
but
can,
but
we would end up, because of the laws of conservation of mass and energy and thermodynamics and entropy, which would take several semesters to explain. That,
what I'm saying is there's still
that
some
would take more
big.
energy to do that than what it was spent in doing that
Well,
in the first place. So
Well,
that's
as it is
nonsense.
now, Tony, as it is now, these ships are cruising all over the world looking for a fight like they have in the Middle East. And I would say assign them
Yeah.
instead to collecting the bigger pieces that under with the integration with oceanographers, so you don't harm the life that are coming up in the nets. You put them back, and so work with the oceanographers and just scoop this stuff up, bring it to land, and find a safe way.
Cannot do, John. Cannot do. Cannot. It's impossible. The size, the size of it and the energy that would take, the resources that would take, it's impossible. Ask the experts. I interviewed and invited several times Charles Moore. He was the man that published in the late 1900s. He actually discovered it by himself and studied and published in the peer-reviewed papers in the 1900s. It's because of the laws, the thermodynamics and the entropy. It would take more energy and resources, and we would put more garbage out than what we were taking out of the ocean. It's impossible. So the solution to that is to ban plastics and ban them as pronto, ASAP, as soon as possible. Which the industry and the chemical industry is it's single-use plastics. The total recycled the plastics is below 10%. And the total plastics, the propaganda about recycled plastics was started by the chemical industry, was paid like the tobacco industry paid the tobacco propaganda, and they follow the same principles. It was done that way, and the plastics do
Well,
not, because of the chemical properties of plastic, they don't recycle well. So effectively, only 1 or 2% of plastics that produce the 400 million tons.
What I'm saying is, in order to get it out of the ocean, something needs to be done, because there's this, as you mentioned, this gigantic patch, some of which is too small to scoop up, unfortunately, but there's still stuff there, and it's good to at least get it out of the ocean, sequester it somewhere, find the safest way to deal with it. That's my issue, and we're running out of time, Tony.
It's
So
impossible.
I think we
Research
need to.
investigate a little bit. You'll find very quickly. And if you like to talk to me a little bit more on that, that's fine. Call me or email me. And there are two. I don't know if we already finished or not. There are two other.
Hey, gentlemen, sorry for stepping in here. We seem to have some technical difficulties with
Oh yeah,
Josh.
I was wondering about that.
So Tony, I want to appreciate all your time and wonderful advice. I hardly recommend people take your Saturday class who are available. And there's a couple of groups who would love to get you in front of. But for now, want to go ahead and wrap up here. And thanks everybody for joining us. Thanks everybody for watching. Thanks, John. Thanks to Josh. Thanks to Justin helping out in the booth. And once again, thank you, Tony, for
love to be here, love to debate these issues, and thank you everyone for your time, for your patience, and for the good work and the good intentions that you have. Let's turn the change.org petition that I have in their proposal. It's a proposal to the governor of California. Turn it into an initiative in your state. That's what I'm going to do as soon as there are enough signatures in there. And the classes are on the Facebook, classes sessions on Facebook every Saturday. Please join in. This will take several months. We'll go into a lot in depth into a lot of material, but it just only on those 8 topics. So we're very focused on those 8 topics, and that's all we need to live on the planet and live well.
All right,
thank
Tony.
you, everybody.
Yeah, thanks for coming by. Thanks for having us, John. Anything you want to say on the way out the door?
Okay, I think I'm finished with what I was going to say. So unless there's any question that you have for me.
Nope. I appreciate everybody's time today, and thank you for coming and watching another episode of Green for Life. See you next week.
Okay, bye.